good morning, and another morning from the White Hart Hotel, right in the middle of Lewes. And what's so special about the White Hart? Well, first of all, it's got one hell of a history. The rafters you can see behind me are original, going back to the 17th century. And many a famous name has passed under this roof, I'll tell you. Lewes at one time was the premier town in East Sussex on the south coast. Brighton didn't exist, Eastbourne didn't exist, and in fact the next big town was Chichester, with whom Lewes has vied over the centuries to try and be the premier town. Well, times have changed, but the White Hart carries on, and it tries very hard to maintain the spirit of independence for which it's famous. And the reason it's famous is that this is where Tom Paine formulated the rights of man. The basic premise, the basic book that he wrote, which said that the idea of divine right of kings, the idea that there should be an elite ruling group was not satisfactory to the average man, and that we should have more governance, more representation in governance, in something he termed the House of Commons. Didn't exist in the 1800s, late 1700s, early 1800s. But on top of that, he then went off to the United States, which he, according to Bill Bryson, the historian, named the United States, rallied the waning colonists who thought the king was going to come to their aid, and the tax on tea was a parliament thing. It really, although he didn't fire the shot, he was the man responsible for the American Revolution. And you look behind you, behind me, and look at those oak beams, and this is where he did a lot of it. Oh, yes, he did. He also drank a lot of it. He wasn't a particularly nice man, but in terms of visionary and the establishing the fact that the balance of life 200, 300 years ago was not right, was down to Tom Paine. Not a name, strangely, that we revere, but a name in the United States, particularly on the East Coast, that is taught in every school and is known for starting the great American adventure. Well, there we are. That's a good start to the day, isn't it? And it is a good start to the day because, let's see, we've got Mick Symes. Good morning, Keith. Nice to hear your dulcet tones to get the day off to a good start. Thank you, Mick. And you have a standing invitation to come by the White Hart anytime between 9:30 and 11:30, any weekday, and join me and have a chat and let people know what's going on. For people who don't know Mick Symes, and just about everybody does, but there are a lot of newcomers to Lewes. Mick runs the pages on Facebook, Lewes Present, Lewes Past, and I think Lewes Yet to Come. If there's anything going on in Lewes, he knows it. So hopefully we'll have him on our show on a regular basis, because all you've got to do, Mick, is when you're passing the White Hart, anytime in those hours, is just pop in. And we're right in that the front bar, as you can see. And this is a really nice place to broadcast from. And I have to say that Cliff and Sally Ayres have really been more than generous and helpful in getting us established here so that we can have an open type of television. It's a new type of television. Oh, yes, open mic and all that sort of thing has been tried. But the idea of a drop-in television hasn't really. And so far, we've had a few people drop by, and sometimes we haven't. In which case, they've had to listen to me. But the whole idea is for people to wander by, drop in, have their say, let us know what's going on, or even what's going through their minds. So there we are. Let's looking out onto the high street. It is bathed in sunshine and likely to be so for the rest of the day. It is going to be a sunny day. The temperature isn't going to be any more yesterday. It's about 15 degrees. The breeze is going to be modest, which means that I can keep my hat on. And the likelihood of rain is very, very slight. So a very, very nice day, a day to get out and enjoy, whether you want to go far afield or whether you just want to come and wander up and down the high street or into Cliff and take a look at what's going on in the stores. It's a day to get out there. That's the weather. Now, what's happening in let's see what's happening in the world. And looking at the front pages of the newspapers, it's a mixed bag this morning. The Sun is a lovely, bubbly jubilee. Is the pubs are going to stay serving until 1 a.m. on the day that we celebrate the Queen's Jubilee. Now you're going to say, which day is that? I haven't a clue. But nonetheless, on the day that we do, then you can stay until 1 o'clock in the morning enjoying a pint. And so it should be. And so we should be celebrating some joyous stuff, because we've had enough problems over the last little while. War, pestilence, economic deprivation, you name it. It has hit this country and hit much of the world as well. And just to have a little bit of a laugh, a little bit of a giggle is just something that I think that we all needed. We all needed that little bit of a giggle. That's what we needed. The Daily Star, and it really is my favorite newspaper, because not only does it normally not go along with the rest of the papers in reflecting what's happening in society, but also they have some great leader writers and invasion of the very hungry but very, very, very slow caterpillars. And it looks as if we are going to have an infestation of caterpillars which are on the march. And it says, the story says, they're not very fast, but they're coming. So watch out. They are poisonous. They can cause severe breathing problems, and they're invading us, which is something a lot of other people would love to do, but haven't been able to. So if you're a keen gardener, be careful how you pick up these caterpillars, because they can be toxic. And if you see caterpillars in the garden, make sure that the children don't actually pick them up, because a caterpillar is it's a fascinating thing to children. Well, it's a fascinating thing to everybody, I suppose. But do be careful. Be very, very careful, because these can do a bit of harm, a bit of damage. The PM's bonfire of policies to placate angry Tories, and that a lot of new legislation on crime and online child safety and so on is being shelved, or at least put on the longer finger, because we have to protect the Prime Minister, according to the Tories. So it is the bonfire of the policies to placate angry Tories. In other words, some of this stuff is pretty controversial stuff, and it's not going to go before Parliament, because the party ruling elite don't want to upset those people who are at the moment being bolshy, shall we say, about the Prime Minister, who is still in India. The Daily Express, which has a tendency to support the government, an extra annual holiday to acknowledge the Queen's incredible service to her country is opposed for approval. Right, so a new bank holiday to honor the Queen. And some people are saying, okay, if we get it this year, let's make sure that we, and bosses, why not have a permanent bank holiday in June to sort of spread it out through the year? And actually, it's not a bad idea because people have a holiday, a bank holiday, which is always welcome. And then there's a gap between that and other holidays. Although July and August, of course, are traditionally when people go away for their 2 weeks or their 3 weeks or their 4 weeks or whatever. But a little break in June would not go amiss on an annual basis. So perhaps the people in Westminster who are on holiday permanently, in my view, will take notice of that. The Daily Mail, GPs to vote on closing their doors at just 5 p.m. And somebody already said to me this morning, that's outrageous. But what happened to the Hippocratic Oath? The medical profession has feathered its own nest. It's obviously got a fairly militant organization in charge, and it wants to keep on making life comfortable for GPs. Well, I got a message for GPs. Life ain't comfortable. It's not comfortable for any of us. And if, in fact, your main aim now is to make life comfortable for yourselves, you are right out of step. And do not expect sympathy from your patients or sympathy from the general public when you want to do something that's outrageous or you need support. And you do need support quite often. Forget that new equipment that you always lusted after from public subscription. Forget public support to the government for legislation that helps you in your day-to-day activities. If you want to keep on making it a comfortable profession, you have your comfort. But don't expect sympathy from us. We have to work hard. On this particular project, small though it may be, television channel, local television channel, I have to work 7 days a week. And quite often I work 10 or 12 hours a day. And I ain't no spring chicken. But I have a great belief that this is needed, that it is something that each society should have. Well accepted across the United States, well accepted across the Balkan countries and the Baltics, well accepted in all other parts of the world except here, where for some reason the television industry, well, I know one reason, it's its self-interest again. The television industry has decided that we should be bigger is better. And each time that legislation is introduced and a plan is introduced for local television, the civil service screw it up. There was a plan put forward by Jeremy Hunt 6 or 7 years ago, and a network of local television. And it was so badly thought out and so badly done. And it wasn't local at all. And as usual, got bogged down in all the flimity stuff that only civil servants can think up. It's failed. And it was no need for it to fail. But anyway, the whole point really is that we work very hard to bring a service to our community with very little reward. And that is the way I see GPs. That is the way I see the medical profession. Work hard to bring a service to your community. Yes, I have no objection whatsoever to you getting rewards. But if the rewards are closing down and operating like a bakery or a coffee shop, then you do not have my sympathy. There. The Daily Telegraph. children's hepatitis outbreak linked to lockdown. Well, there are a lot of things that are going to be linked to lockdown, and not least of which is mental stress. And after everybody saying, yes, 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 oh, dear, 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 look, oh, we've got a pandemic that is actually going to be not at all to our society, and oh, the heart wringing and the hand wringing, and the appointment of the future king to a big charity for mental stress, is we pay no attention whatsoever. None whatsoever. There's a lot of shouting and yelling, and then nothing happens. And I actually can tell you that for a fact, because I've been looking after somebody for 5 or 6 years with mental stress. And she is still stressed to this day. And the things that are promised never transpire. Never. Okay. There's a strong case for looking after those who are really, really severely mentally ill. But there is no sense whatsoever in highlighting the fact that mental stress is on the increase and then doing nothing about it. None. And children's hepatitis outbreak linked to lockdown, there are going to be a lot of things that are linked to lockdown. Our entire life changed. The stress that myself and others underwent. Luckily, we're tough as old boot. Yeah, we may behave in a sort of odd way because of... it's a funny little thing, there, isn't it? Tough as old boot. But generally speaking, is we maintain a reasonably decent level of sanity. And we're able to look at these things in a dispassionate way. Perhaps that's the problem. That mental health is looked at in a dispassionate way, because it is certainly not a dispassionate disease. It is not a dispassionate disability. It needs a lot more understanding than it gets. A lot more. And going around with a tin and shaking it and asking for coppers on a Saturday afternoon isn't one of them. And the Times, a passport shambles threatens holidays. The summer holidays are at risk for millions because of huge delays in processing passports. The government now is saying, hey, listen, get your application in as fast as you can, because you may not be able to travel because your passport won't arrive in time. And once again, if there is anything that is coming out of the lockdown, it's the inability of our civil service to handle things in any sort of volume. We are seeing loads and loads and loads. I mean, medicine is one of them, but seeing loads of things that we once took for granted not being offered for a sale. It is not being offered for us to take advantage of. And the passport shambles is, at one time you could get a passport within 24 hours. Okay, it costs you a little bit extra. Perhaps you still can get an emergency one, I don't know. That's how I got mine. And luckily I got a 10-year one. I think it'll outlast me. I can just see now, I think because I've traveled extensively, I can see probably on my coffin will be my passport. And I wish it was the last one, because the last one was so full with stamps. There was no room for it anymore. I was arriving at airports and they were saying, get a new passport, otherwise we won't let you in. Okay, so there is a passport shambles. The Mirror bloodbath, it talks about a family where 4 were murdered in a stabbing frenzy I think it was in London. Was it? Let's see. It was an NHS worker, and they were found stabbed to death yesterday. And obviously somebody had gone berserk with a knife. But perhaps what we're talking about with mental stress, particularly in the NHS, is that's exactly the sort of thing that is going to start to happen. And it is, instead of worrying about icing on the cake, the Boris Gate, or whatever you want to call it, issue from Christmas, is that the people that we've elected to represent us, who have a very, very cushy number, thank you. They only have to raise an arm and somebody is there to hold it. They've got benefits, the like of which is we will never, ever be able to imagine as private citizens. If they're going to get these benefits, then I think what we should do is we should expect that they actually start to find out what the issues are and to lobby hard with their own leaders that something is done. And the stress of lockdown and the throwback, particularly in small business, needs to be addressed. Oh, the flim-flam. The banks particularly. We are here to support you until you phone them or go in. Oh, they're pleasant enough on the front desk, but they have no authority. It's a bloody computer somewhere that has the authority. I only noticed the other day that one small £25 bill, I'd taken my eye off the roses. I was 59 pence over, and it was bounced. Now, in the old days, when you had a bank manager who knew you, that wouldn't have happened. Oh, we're there to support you. Bollocks. They're not at all. They are there for an easy life. Everybody's after an easy life, and now the doctors are following the easy life pattern. Ah, yes. Aha. Anyway, the sad thing is that there was a multiple stabbing with an NHS worker, and the stress, in some ways, is something that we've got to pay attention to. The London paper, the Metro, Musk pays a tweet £35 billion for Twitter, a play on words that the social media app has been bought for 35 billion, and that because of these things is there are individuals who are gathering a great deal of power and authority because these things go a long, long way. Our tentacles are huge. The Guardian, Javid urged to relax the law as women forced to travel miles to find HRT. This is to do with the shortage of HRT and the fact that women's lives are at risk because the menopause causes them sufficient problems that they, in some cases, are suicidal, and that the shortage is not necessarily one that we have to live with. So the Guardian is saying, relax the law. I'm not quite sure what law he's relaxed, but at least he's being urged to address the problem. And the Financial Times, the Financial Times, of course, has been following more or less the party line, if you want to call it that. In other words, the things that domestically have been bothering us, like energy and the immigration and things of concern to us. But normally it tries to keep an eye broadly, and its remit is to broadly to look at what's happening in the financial world. And it says that Beijing is gripped by panic buying as COVID cases show a grave rise. In other words, in China, the COVID is coming back with a vengeance, and people are busy buying. Whether in China they buy toilet rolls or not, I have no idea. But things are disappearing off the shelves as people start prepare perhaps for more lockdowns, more problems, more living at home or behind closed doors, and they want to make sure that they're well stocked up. That's broadly the headlines. It's a mixture this morning, and the fact is that these headlines take our eye off the ball when it comes to the war in Europe. And I'm going to put it the war in Europe because on the early national news this morning is one commentator said the word world war is now being used. And it looked as if perhaps we are going to have a World War III. Certainly the saber rattling has been pretty heavy between Boris and the Russians, with the Russians accusing Boris of threatening to use nuclear missiles and therefore preparing nuclear missiles in the way back. So quid pro quo. Hello. How are you?
Hello. Gosh, that looks very technical.
Sorry?
That looks very technical.
Yes. Come on in. You're live on television.
No.
Oh dear. Well, you could have let us know what you think about the situation. An opportunity for your voice. Oh dear. Never mind. It is nice to see people wandering in and seeing that we're doing things, and so hopefully we'll have some people come in and say "Oi." So let us actually see if we can. Can we actually? Let's see if this works. Well. Yeah. Life since 1952. Oh, there. That was just a reflection of some of the things. There's one shot there that it is pre 1952, and that is the one of the winter of 1948, which was one of the fiercest winters that we've ever experienced. It was long, it was hard, it was snow-driven, and people were talk about shortages. People had to run along the streets between snowbanks to get fuel and food. It was a horrific winter, and I can actually remember because in those days, we wore short trousers, and my short trousers didn't cover my little thighs. So my grandmother took some of her old stockings and put them on me, so that when I went out, I wasn't the bare flesh wasn't exposed to the raw cold. Expediency, yes, but it's funny how we accept a lot of things now. Is that these woolen leotards that people wear, which frankly I think are the ugliest things that you've ever seen, but there we go. It's only in the eye of the beholder. But they didn't exist. We didn't have such things. And so to protect our legs against something that we'd never experienced before, a really fierce, nasty winter, is that you were innovative. You found ways of trying to keep yourself warm, keep yourself away from the elements, while still being able to go outside. The rest of those pictures were very much 1952 onwards, and I hope that let's see, remove from studio. Yes, we don't want that anymore. Come on, let's have my morning. What shall I say? I draw a breath from time to time. I draw a breath, and where I draw the breath is here, and it's just one of those places that is just my favorite. So therefore, I'm trying to make it your favorite as well. I was talking to a gentleman called David Arnold yesterday. Hopefully, David will make an appearance later in the year. But he is, along with colleagues, responsible for celebrating the Battle of Lewes. And what reminded me of that was that our logo, if you like, our signature, is the helmet of a medieval knight, which the sculpture of which stands proudly in Priory Park. And it commemorates the Battle of Lewes in 1264. Now, the Battle of Lewes doesn't run off the tongue easily of most people in the UK, and yet it is similarly the key moment when democracy sparked. I say sparked because the democracy that came from the Battle of Lewes was not democracy as we know it, but it was the start of the end of the divine right of kings. The barons said, "Oi, Henry," speaking to King Henry III, "you are using our taxes profligately. You are doing things in your own way without reference to us, but you're using our money and our resources and our authority, for that matter, to do them. And that is not good enough. If we're paying the tab, we expect to have a say. Now, that was supposed to happen in 50 years earlier, and when Magna Carta was signed, as a 12 something. That's how much I know about Magna Carta. Arguably, a very controversial document, because many people say King John never signed it. But that means nothing, really, because in those days it was done by royal seal. That was how things were. The king didn't put sort of John I or Henry III. The royal seal was attached. A lot of rumors, therefore, have sprung up that King John could neither read nor write. Well, scholars say he was actually not a bad administrator. He was not a bad king in many ways, even though he's depicted in that way, except that he believed in the divine right of kings, and that he ignored having signed Magna Carta, or at least put it into play, into legislation, if you like. He then ignored it. And his ancestors, no, the people who came after him anyway, his descendants also ignored it until 1264, when Simon de Montfort, heading up the barons, said, "Hey, you can't go on like this. Agreement was made. Let's sit down and have a chat." And the king said, "Bugger off." So Simon gathered a few of his close associates and said, "Right, we're going to take you on, Mr. King. And we know that you are going to be celebrating in Lewes, in the priory there, the Feast of St. Pancras." And indeed, that's where the king was. And Simon snuck up on him. Although it is difficult to know how that happened, because if you go to the top of the castle in Lewes, which still exists to this day, if you go to the top of the castle, you can see in every direction. There is no way that you could creep up and take anybody by surprise. But he did. And one can only surmise that the king felt so secure that he carried on his feasting in the priory, and that everyone was having such a damn good time is they didn't notice that Simon and the boys were knocking on the door. And although it was about 3-1 in terms of the numbers in armies, the king's forces broke ranks because they had initial successes, and they chased off after the ragtag and bobtail army of the barons, and in so doing is they broke ranks, and Simon's army managed to breach the guard, the rear guard, and that was it. The game was over. So the king was forced to sign something called the Mise, M-I-S-E, either the Mise or the Mise of Lewes. And the very next day, and this was in May of 1264, the very next day, a rump of barons formed the first parliament in Westminster. And that's where it's been ever since. So this is an important occasion for the country. As a matter of fact, it's an important occasion for the world, because English democracy was the forerunner of democratic processes and thinking for almost the entire time post Battle of Lewes, post the conflict between Simon de Montfort and King Henry III. So it is an important battle. It is an important moment in history. And David Arnold and his colleagues are going to recreate it as best they can. And they've done a pretty damn good job in the past. So hopefully he will be on with us explaining about that in the not too distant future. Where are we? It's 12 minutes past 9. Goodness gracious me, that first hour zips by when you're having fun, doesn't it? Let's see what else we got here. Now this one is something that I just love, because when I was working in Kosovo, we used to really get very upset at the fact that the EU and the United Nations people were actually didn't do much at all except to wander around. So we used to sing this to them.
Doing nothing, working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere, isn't it just a crime? We'd like to be unhappy, but we never do have the time.
Well, there we are. And I was in fine voice on the day that I did that. You could almost make out that it's supposed to be a tune. Busy doing nothing. And that was our comment on those civil servants, if you like, from other countries. That it didn't exactly set us alight. Right, it is now 9:15. Let's just quickly run through the headlines again, so that you know what's going on. And let me also just remind you that it's a lovely day out there. I mean, it really is a lovely day out there. And it's about 15 degrees. A very modest breeze. And the sun is flooding through and is likely to for most of the day. Very little chance of rain. All in all, not a bad day to be out and about, particularly if you want to sort of restore your spirits and keep things going. By the way, if you look at Mirador Television at gmail.com, that's where you can actually leave any comments that you want for us. And if you would like to have your name, your company's name or your personal name, it'll cost you a $5, which is a pretty damn good price. And particularly when you consider that this will stay forever, lad, forever on our social media page. Which is well, we've got a lot of social media pages, but they all last forever, as ever and ever. Amen. And as a consequence, if you want to make sure that the name of your company or the name of your of just you, your family or whatever, want to be remembered forever, it costs you $5. There are 3 hours that we broadcast from 8:30 till let's see, 12:30, no, 11:30. I'm sorry, 11:30 each day, and then it sticks for the rest of the time. So for a fiver for an hour of seeing us sip away, but having your name associated with the program is not a bad deal at all. I mean, you might want to do it for a week. We hope you would do it for a week, but we'll do it for 1 hour if you wish, just for a fiver. And that's that's the way things are done nowadays. Yes, indeed, they are. The television and the way that we watch it has undergone a great deal of change. And everybody sort of said, oh, the Netflix model, that people will buy stuff. The days of television that doesn't cost you anything are gone. Well, Netflix has had a tremendous reverse. That the subscriptions have just dropped off. People do want a certain amount of variety. They don't just want a blockbuster movie. They aren't prepared to pay for stuff which they feel there is an equivalent elsewhere. So Netflix has taken a bit of a hammering. Where does that leave television? I don't know. The one thing I can tell you is that this television that we do is a different type of television. And although we're only 3 days old, really, we're not. I mean, we're 5 or 6 years old, but in many ways, we've never been bold enough to try experimenting. And this is what we're doing. And you probably saw as a lady wandered in, she wouldn't come on television. But if you want to wander in, if you want to wander past the White Hart Hotel and say, "Oh, I think I'll go and have my say. I'm seething, or I'm full of joy. Let me go and let the world know." Instead of just tapping into social media, you can come and you have your little say. We're here. We're very happy to see you. So let's shall we there. Get rid of the trivia. Oh, that's what we were going to do. We were going to just run through the papers again. The Daily Star is the invasion of the very hungry but very, very, very slow caterpillars. There is a brand of caterpillar that is poisonous, but it's invading Britain and is going to be in our gardens and our parks and in all those places that caterpillars accumulate and turn into butterflies. But these are poisonous, so be very careful how you handle them, and be very careful how you let the kids handle them, because kids are fascinated by a caterpillar. The PM's bonfire policies to placate angry Tories is it's reported that Boris is going to shelve some of his more controversial and probably more useful legislation just because the backbenchers are in full flow and trying hard to give him a bad time. They sense that he's vulnerable. But, you know, one of the things that the Keir Starmer has been warned by some of his advisors, and the head of the Labour Party has been told, look, stop carrying on about the Christmas stuff. Stop carrying on about Boris's cake, because people are far more concerned about the cost of living, far more concerned about price rises, far more concerned about the economy weakening, far more concerned about, for that matter, GPs deciding to quit early. They are worried about these things, and those are the things that you should be addressing. And we've been saying that for quite some time. Who gives a fig anymore about a Christmas cake? The Prime Minister lied in Parliament. That you can isolate and handle in a specific way. But digging up every last little thing from the lockdown, the COVID era, is beyond the pale. And the eye says the PM's bonfire of policies to placate angry Tories. They've shelved a lot of legislation, and I'm not sure that that's a good thing at all. The Daily Express, new bank holiday to honour the Queen. Whoopee! I think that's rather good. Very happy with that. It's not that I want us to take our foot off the pedal of recovery, but I think what we've done is we settled into two different parts of society. There are those of us who work bloody hard because we have to, because we got no help whatsoever from the government. We're the people, we're the foot soldiers who keep things going. And then there are the others who have got so used to working from home, they don't want to go back to the office. And they are saying, no, yeah, a little bit more. No, let's look at things differently. And the civil service is the one that's the worst, apparently. So we really have devolved into those who want to work and those that don't. And one of the things that I think that we just have to worry about is that those who don't really expect the rest of us to support a society which is creaking. It needs shoulders to the wheel. Perhaps it's the war that will do it. The Daily Telegraph, children's hepatitis outbreak linked to lockdown. The Times, passport shambles threatens holidays. Yeah, you haven't got your passport application, get it in. Get it in, because it is likely that you got your tickets, you got your suntan lotion, you got everything, and you arrive at the airport, and still your passports have not come through the post. The Daily Mirror is a bloodbath, and it talks about a family knife massacre, the family wiped out. The Metro, Musk pays a tweet of he's paid $35 billion to buy Twitter, which apparently is the favorite social media site at the moment. You can find us on Twitter, actually. Yeah, we've got a site. It's all in between all the stuff that all the stuff that everybody else is posting. So but nonetheless, we're there, we're on it, and we hopefully. I'm just checking to see whether there's anybody else who has left a post for us. No, The Guardian. Javid urged to relax law as women forced to travel miles to find HRT. And there's a shortage of HRT. And apparently, some people are saying it's a coast. Right, we just had a little note from Fergus Wood that the new regime is today. He can't accommodate us, which is a pity because Fergus is always a very good value. But he says next week that he will adjust his schedule and will rejoin us. So good for Fergus. Fergus is our wine man, and we hope that we're going to see more of him and see him in the flesh. So you can actually drop by the White Hart and say hello to Fergus and see some of his wines and taste some of his wines. We're slowly getting there, bit by bit by bit. The Financial Times is saying that the panic buying has gripped Beijing in China because COVID cases have shown a grave rise. Now, hopefully that's not going to happen here because we've actually seen the reverse. We've actually seen a decrease in the number of COVID cases. But we've got to be very careful indeed, because it is not, we haven't beaten it. We got it under cover, we got it under control, but we haven't beaten it. So make sure that you still observe all the precautions, even down to social distancing where you can, because if that gets a grip again and it starts to rampage, as indeed it is in China, then I fear for the future of our society, because actually we haven't handled it terribly well. And I'm not talking about the government now, I'm talking about us as individuals. We haven't handled it terribly well. We have resented the fact that we've been asked to wear masks. We resented the fact that we've been asked to keep social distancing. We resented the fact that we have not been able to go out quite the way that we used to. We resented all these restrictions. And if, in fact, they come back with a bang, with a boom, then I think the resentment will spill over. So there's a warning from Beijing that panic buying is back as the COVID cases show a grave rise. A grave rise. Okay, it's line 29. We're going to say toodle pip for the moment, and then we'll come back with the second part of our show, affairs, and it'll be a much more light-hearted approach to things than this hour, where we take a look at the headlines, the front pages, and those things which are likely to impact on our lives. Yeah, 9:29. We can say toodle pip, and we'll see you in a few minutes.